Hey everybody, I'm Alice McClellan.
And I'm Mason McClellan.
And we're the Backtrack Brothers. We go back and watch classic movies and see how they hold up now.
We're going to go over a personal history with the movie, and then we're going to touch on visuals, acting, and soundtrack. After that, we're going to go into spoilers and talk about the plot. And then we're going to end it by giving our overall thoughts and holdupability of the movie.
That's right. Today, we're covering Spider-Man, the 2002 film directed by Sam Raimi. Now, Mason, let's get things started off by you telling us your personal history with Spider-Man and this movie in particular, and any other Spider-Man info you want to give us.
So like any kid, right?
Yeah.
Loved Spider-Man. Thought his powers were so cool, wanted to be the next new Spider-Man.
Right.
As a kid, I had all the Spider-Man cups and costumes and all that stuff and toys and little things, but I never watched the movies.
Interesting.
I don't know if I just liked it from the toys look cool, or just everyone talking about Spider-Man, or just the concept of a Spider-Man. But I just seemed to be drawn to the character. But I never seen any of the original trilogy, and I didn't see Homecoming when it came out. Okay. So.
And you never watched any of the old animated shows, never read any comics, never got any of that. Okay, gotcha.
So I'm confused on how I even picked it up, but I remember really liking Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well, I will say, you were born in 2008, which is literally the year that Iron Man came out and started the whole Marvel revolution. So your childhood coincided with the Avengers becoming the biggest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
So I don't think you really had a choice. Now, have you seen any other Spider-Man films other than this one now, or have you, outside the Avengers universe?
So my first thing was, Spider-Verse part of the Avengers? I guess not.
No, I think Enter the Spider-Verse is separate.
Yes, I saw that and I fell in love with it.
Okay, that's awesome.
Right after that, I just, I started watching the newer ones that were pretty much tied to the Marvel Universe, which was Far From Home, No Way Home, which No Way Home I really enjoyed.
Gotcha.
Far From Home not as much, but this movie, it was definitely different, and we'll touch on that.
Right.
But, yeah, this was really my first touch of old Spider-Man. Obviously, I've seen the internet memes and stuff like that, but this 100%. Is really the first full watch from me.
Interesting. It's very cool. So now you are familiar with the Tom Holland Spider-Man, but you're not familiar with Andrew Garfield?
Never seen Andrew Garfield.
Okay, never seen The Amazing Spider-Man?
Nope.
Interesting.
But I obviously, Tobey Maguire, just from people talking about him on the internet and just seeing clips from the movies, I know who he is.
Right. Yes. That makes sense.
But I didn't know who Andrew Garfield was until No Way Home.
Interesting.
I didn't really care about The Amazing Spider-Man. I never really knew the difference between The Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man until No Way Home.
Right. Sony owns this first original trilogy and the Andrew Garfield trilogy. Okay. So that's where you kind of see, that's why there's a rift between all of these different franchises, right?
Yeah.
How these titles work is that these studios, they have the rights to something like Spider-Man, and to keep those rights and retain them so that they don't go back out to the public sector to be bid on again, they have to make another movie using that IP within a certain amount of time. Yeah. So what happened is they didn't make a movie with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in who knows how many years. They're like, we have to use this within a certain amount of years or else we lose the IP for it. Yeah. So all right, get Garfield in here, we'll make Amazing Spider-Man and start a new series. And
they just kind of rush that series out.
I think the Amazing Spider-Man series, I think it was good for what it was. I'm somebody who likes Andrew Garfield as a performer. I think other people just don't like him, which is fine. That's a personal preference thing. I don't think the villains were nearly as good in that series, which a big thing about superhero movies is the villains have to be good. The best superhero movies have the best supervillains. Yeah. There's
Name a superhero movie without a bad. I stuttered. Name a good superhero movie without a good supervillain.
Right, exactly. You think about The Dark Knight, Superman, any of them, they all have a classic villain they're bashing against. So, 100%. Amazing Spider-Man didn't have that. They did have Emma Stone in and it wasn't Mary Jane. They did all these weird tweaks to it, where it wasn't the exact same characters. And also Andrew Garfield is a little bit too posh and jockey to me to be Peter Parker. So that was kind of an issue, but yeah, that's the reason why that series isn't well renowned and why it probably didn't get the love and appreciation put into it probably should have. Definitely compared to the original trilogy and the ones that were seen with Tom Holland. Exactly. So my personal history, growing up, kid of the 90s, Spider-Man comics were huge, but really, I wasn't really a comic kid, but the Amazing Spider-Man animated series, like turning on TV 9, 10 years old in the mornings or on the weekend, and that Spider-Man TV show was on, that was my shit.
Yeah.
And then they started coming out with really cool Spider-Man video games. Like they started with like side-scrollers on the Nintendo, but eventually they started like on the PS2, you started getting the 3D world where you could actually web sling and fly around. Dude, that was revolutionary back in the day. That was crazy, you know what I mean? That was back when Grand Theft Auto Vice City was just revolutionizing things with a free roam map. Now we got that with Spider-Man, and it was so freaking cool. That coincided with this movie being released. So this was like Spider-Man hysteria.
Same year?
Yeah, like the Spider-Man game that came out was tied to the theatrical release. Okay. So then Spider-Man 2 came out, and Spider-Man 2 game came out, and Spider-Man 3 came out. So, you can imagine. So yeah, that's what got me into it. The animated series, these movies, and then the video games. I was like, Spider-Man's the shit. I think it's really marketable to young kids because he's the youngest of all of the like superheroes. You know what I mean? Like Batman's an older dude, Superman's an alien that's older. Like Spider-Man's supposed to be a teenager.
And anyone can really become Spider-Man, according to every kid.
Right, exactly.
They can be the next Spider-Man.
Right. After falling in love with the series and the movies, then all of a sudden the Avengers becomes a thing, and I'm like, oh shit, like Spider-Man's gonna come into this universe.
Yeah.
I go to college, Amazing Spider-Man series comes out with Andrew Garfield. Meh. Like everyone kind of is just meh, and we move on with our lives until Civil War when Spider-Man, is finally revealed in the Avengers, and that just sparked Tom Holland being a star. As soon as I saw that performance in Civil War, I'm like, this is what Spider-Man's supposed to be. Yeah. Sorry, Tobey. We'll get into that later. But that's my personal background with Spider-Man and my Spider-Man fandom.
Cool.
All right, Mason, I think it's time for you to get us kick-started in the visual category. What did you think of the visuals for this movie?
So I'm gonna start with a few practical effects.
Okay.
So one of them, he had like from the spider bite, the bite was slowly getting bigger and bigger, and that bump on his hand, when he was laying down on the floor, like that looked scary.
Oh yeah, that was definitely, it was intense. Yeah, no, I agree. The makeup was really well done on that. And even like you see it the next day and it's like reduced, but it's like but it's still there. Yeah, it's just like realistic. I feel like that's what happens with scabs. I'm not a doctor, fuck. Keep going.
There is one practical effect I didn't think looked as good.
Okay.
When MJ is swinging on Spider-Man through the city.
Yeah.
It's like a model, like Spider-Man. That's like standing still, swinging like that. It's hilarious. If you notice it.
It is. And it's one of those things where I think they're trying to not lean on CGI too much. Probably because it doesn't look too good in this movie, which makes sense. But I totally agree with you. That was another bad effect to see this. I remember being in the theater as a kid and thinking that looked cool. I don't know if it's just because we have better technology now or watching it in 4K.
Maybe you just didn't notice it was fake.
Yeah, when I was 10, I probably didn't realize it. But now being a 30-year-old man, I'm watching that. Like, that's a dummy on a string.
Yeah. And there's one little scene where there was slow-mo and stuff like that. Like
one scene was slow-mo. I feel like every scene's in slow-mo. No, okay. But no, seriously, a lot of slow-mo in this.
There's the one that's in the school where there's spitball coming out and all that stuff. And most of it looks fine, except for when the bully's throwing the punch. Yeah. It's like the PNG fist coming out.
Yeah, it is. And he has a little squeal noise that comes out. It's the fist. And what's bad is you can see, especially if you watch it 2 times in 24 hours like I did, you can see the fist is moving, but it's just a still background. Yeah. It's really bad. It's not good. I totally agree with you there. And it's tough because the fly looks good. Like it pans around. Spitball looks great. Like all this stuff with texture, but then all of a sudden you get the slideshow animation of a fist. Not great.
And then there's one more I want to mention. When he's jumping, the first time that he's jumping from building to building, it looks like he's just getting bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller.
It's once again not great. I totally agree with you. And it's funny because there's so many scenes that are shot in the dark in this movie, especially the CGI heavy scenes. And I think you really see why in that shot, because when it's in pure daylight, you can see all the details. it's not good, man. Back in the day, I think it was solid, like decent.
You could see through it.
But yeah, it was not good. Like you could tell, you're watching it and you're like, this is CGI. You know this isn't real. It takes you out of that window of disbelief that you need to have when you're in a movie. And the last thing you want is to be pulled out of that.
Yes.
Visually for me, right off the bat, opening credit scene. Just blue and black procedurally generated buildings. Those are like flat, like cardboard. It's supposed to be like a comic book effect, but I don't think it's very effective. And then you have webs. Like, that's the whole thing.
There's just names on webs for 5 damn minutes.
It's so long. It's honestly one of the longest opening credits I've sat through. You don't need to have the third direction assistant in your opening credits. They're in the end. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for getting the director's coffee. Really appreciate it. Needed to know you were a part of this program. It's bullshit. I hate long opening credits. Some of my favorite movies are the ones that are just like, fuck credits. Get to it at the end.
Yeah, just stick to it at the end. Yeah. Like imagine Kill Bill, right? With the black and white scene in the beginning. Imagine after that gunshot went off.
Right.
Quentin Tarantino, all the other writers, all the actors. Like it would completely take you out of it.
Catering by Daisy's Food Truck. Yeah, I know, it's bullshit.
Quintino's misogynist.
Yeah. Misogynist?
Yeah, they don't have everything. Like this movie, third director, Jesus Christ.
One thing that drove me nuts in this movie, the transitions.
Oh, I noticed that too.
You have the fade to black transitions, the swipe transitions. You had the fire transition. There's a scene where there's fire.
You saw the fire and it lasted for like 3 seconds. I'm like, this is gonna be a transition. And boom, new scene. So to the viewers, I'm in a video production class in school. And literally today we learned a lesson on transitions. And transitions to use in certain moods and certain vibes.
So when do you use fire transitions?
Never. He literally explicitly said the swipe ones, the like super long fade to blacks that like, you know, unless you're doing like a weird like cartoon or slideshow presentation, there's no point.
No point.
No point.
I'm so glad to hear that you're being taught these things in school, because this shit needs to change. Mason, you did bring up earlier the slow motion and the fight scene with that one character. Now, how about the fact there's slow motion about this whole fucking movie? Yeah. Like, it literally feels like about, I don't know, a sixth of this movie is in slow motion. And you know what? I get it. It's after The Matrix. It's after that big boom. Everyone's doing their thing. But the problem is, if you're going to mimic and copy The Matrix, you need to do better or improve upon what they did. Don't do what they did in a haphazard way. I'll get into specific examples later when we're talking spoilers. But I'll just say the slow motion effects left something to be desired. Yeah. Let's throw some positives out there. So I think that they got a good sense of scale.
Yeah.
You know, when they have like the festival scene, there's a scene on a bridge. I think both of those scenes in terms of like the scale of like what's going on and people impacted and everything like that, I think they do a pretty good job of that. I'm not saying they look 100% great, but what I'm saying is I think this movie does a good job of making you feel like the city is in peril, or there's like, it's a widespread problem. Like there's an impact to what is happening. You know what I mean? Instead of it just being like a small isolated space. Yeah. So practically speaking, I think practically is where this movie really shines. I think the practical costumes, so Spider-Man's like actual, not when he's a CGI slippery slimy Spider-Man, when he's the actual Tobey Maguire wearing a real costume, I think it looks really good. And also, his looks like good, but Green Goblin's looks awesome.
It looks amazing.
Dude, I want that armor. That is badass. And the eyes open and the chainmail over the mouth. Oh, it's badass.
That's cool.
Those eyes, those yellow eyes. I want those eyes. I want to make old ladies say that. One last positive I'll toss out there. Give him a little bit of credit. In general, the CGI leaves you wanting, but I think of all of the CGI in the movie, I think the Green Goblin looks the best. When he's in CGI form, I think there's the least amount of difference between his CGI form and his practical form. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, good job with that, guys.
Good job of knocking it out of the park with the villain.
They really did, though. You gotta give them credit. All right, Mason, let's now dive into the audio section of this movie. So yeah, we're diving on into the audio portion of this review for Spider-Man. And what do you think about the audio score and such?
So I thought it fit the moods of like the scene, like, you know, when it's really intense, like the final battle. A lot of it's silent. There's a lot of like build up with like the strings and stuff like that. And then there's little like moments where it's just, you know, a little bit subtle. Maybe when he's like talking to all the people. When all the people are talking about Spider-Man in the city, it's like it's cool. And then it's like a little bit like, you know, a little like cartoony.
Yeah, fun. Yeah, exactly.
But like, I thought it fit.
Yes. So yes, Mason, I think you nailed it. I think this movie does a really good job of pairing the sounds with the scenes, both, you know, when it's comedic, horror, action, everything's married well. One quick shout out.
Cool.
Holy shit, such a relic of the late 90s, early 2000s. At the festival, big musical guest, Macy Gray. Do you have any idea who Macy Gray is?
I have no clue.
You shouldn't know
But just the way you said it makes it sound like she's,
Yeah, what you just said, yeah.
She's yeah. Yeah.
Granted, she's a talented singer.
Yeah. I think yeah is the perfect way to describe her. It's like, what are your thoughts on Miss Gray over here?
Miss Gray!
Yeah.
Miss Gray doesn't even remember her first name.
Yeah.
No way. No fucking way. Hold on.
Just to tell the camera, it's for Peter Parker. He wrote Peter Pan as his note.
A slight correction in my notes. We're not going to talk about Peter Pan. We're about to talk about Peter Parker. I think Tobey Maguire would be a completely acceptable Peter Pan. Honestly, you put him in green tights instead of red and blue.
He has some orange hair.
Yeah, I don't think it's that hard. Better than Rob Williams and Hook. All right, Mason. So let's get it started. Not talking about Peter Pan, we're talking about Peter Parker, played by Tobey Maguire.
Yes.
Why don't you kick it off and let us know what you think?
So I feel like sometimes he's like, you know, supposed to be like the nerdy, shy character.
Right.
I feel like in certain, like, you know, when he's like crying because like, you know, somebody died, say there's spoilers, but when like people die, right?
Right.
And he's like, when he gets emotional like that, it's good, it's fine. But like, I feel like sometimes with like, some of his emotional delivery in his lines or like excitedness, I feel like it's not there. Like his screams when he's swinging through the city,
right?
Very unrealistic to how you'd actually be screaming. But I don't know. I mean, I thought as a lead role for Spider-Man, I thought he was fine. I don't have Andrew Garfield to judge it to, but I do really prefer Tom Holland over Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, which I think makes a lot of sense. And if you're comparing Tobey Maguire to Tom Holland, which it's kind of hard not to do if you haven't seen both of these series, Tom's younger, more energetic, better charisma, better jokes, wittiness.
Yeah.
And if you know him from the comics and the TV shows and everything, those are all the characteristics that Spider-Man had. And it feels like Tobey, I don't think he could bring that same type of energy.
No.
He was older. I mean, first off, everybody in this freaking cast is older than they probably should be. Honestly, like, I like Kirsten Dunst. She's too old for her role.
All these, are they high schoolers?
Yeah, they're supposed to be high schoolers.
They look like late college, like senior college kids.
At least, and in real life, they're probably mid-late 20s. I will say, I think Tobey has a bit more range as an actor. Like, I don't know, I haven't seen Tom Holland in anything really outside of Spider-Man movies, so I can't really speak to his emotional range in other movies. But I think Tobey shows more emotional range in terms of like the anger and tears.
Yeah.
I'll give Tobey credit, man, his tears in this movie are impressive. He's got that single tear going pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree on that. I mean, I saw, the only other movie I saw Uncharted.
Oh yeah, how's that?
I know a lot about the game,
right?
And you know, it was fine. It was like an stereotypical action movie, but he in that, you know, he was more charismatic. Yeah. He was less. I don't think there was really any like crazy emotional bits. Yeah. Even if there were, there's a reason I forget it. Yeah, I mean, I think Tobey Maguire hit the emotional beats pretty well.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. You know, I'm not trying to sit out here and say that Tom Holland can't do emotional acting.
You've seen the end of Infinity War.
Exactly. No, all right, I should take that back. There is an emotional moment in Infinity War, don't get me wrong. But outside of that, I mean, honestly, that's the only moment I can think of. Yeah. So it's not saying that Tom Holland can't do it, but I am saying that I haven't seen it. Versus Tobey Maguire, you can see it in this movie. He hits those emotional beats. After what happens with the one person passing, he goes from tears to anger all in one shot with no cut or transition. And I thought that was really good acting performance. You just see that turn in his face. That's not easy to do.
No.
So that's where I'm going to toss some flowers at Tobey's feet. Next up, let's talk about the lovely redheaded Mary Jane Parker, played by Kirsten Dunst.
I thought they're supposed to have this awkward chemistry, her and...
It's fucking awkward.
It was awkward, but I felt like, a little towards the end when they were, in the hospital, I felt like that moment was kind of sweet. But other than that, I felt like they were really pushing the awkward envelope. I feel like they were trying to be awkward. I feel like they weren't trying to be awkward even with, I mean, they were meant to put on an awkward performance, which, good job.
Yes.
So, I mean, I thought she wasn't bad.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's one of those things where we'll get into it a little bit later. I think we both agree. She wasn't given a lot to work with in terms of her personal development. They really just had the partnership of her and Peter as kind of like a thing.
Yeah.
She's supposed to be this cute girl next door, which I think she gives off that vibe. I think it's very evident that the script didn't really know what to do with her other than treat her as a damsel in distress or the love interest for Peter. She has her failing jobs and their whatever, but outside of that, she's really just a love toy for Peter and Harry to fight over and, just kind of be an object of Spider-Man's affection. Yeah. That's really it. And I kind of feel bad because we saw that Kirsten Dunst has good acting ability. We've seen it in other movies. We saw it in Jumanji when she was a kid. Yeah. She was witty, smart, had the acting chops right away. You can see it at that age. So I think it's kind of tough to see her in this position because I know she could do so much more.
Yeah, she was really just thrown in as the love interest.
Right, exactly. Damsel in distress, love interest, and right, exactly. She wasn't given the ability to do anything more, but we're going to dive more into those specifics later. Let's dive in now to Norman Osborn, aka Green Goblin. Mason, I agree. Not a spoiler. It's in the trailer. Get over yourself. Played by Willem Dafoe. I'm really interested to hear what your thoughts on him.
I love him.
Thank fucking God. Fuck yeah.
He's sick. Oh, I first saw him in No Way Home and I was like, this guy is terrifying. In this movie, basically same demeanor, same you never know what he's gonna do next. You never know when he's gonna snap. And you figure his character out with him, right? And with his insanity.
It's a great way to put it, Mason. Yeah, it's a great way to put it.
You really, you're learning with him about what his true powers are, right? And which, learning through that whole process, him in this insane state is terrifying, him, and sometimes he'll be in this kind old businessman type deal, and then even that business room meeting when they're when they tell him the bad news, he just instantly smile to drop, and shit's about to go down as soon as that happens.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe, I love him. I think he's one of the best facial expression actors I've ever seen. Not only that, but the charisma, the voice delivery. He understands, back to formula. He understands how to say that in a subdued way, but with so much meaning. Yeah. And then you see, 15 minutes later, where that pays off again, where he says that line a little differently. And you're working with gold, man. So the Green Goblin character, he was always a famous villain for the Spider-Man series, and that character has a very iconic voice, a very iconic laugh, a very iconic demeanor, and Dafoe nails it. Yeah. Nails it. And we mentioned earlier in the video, every great superhero movie has a great super villain, and boy does he live up to it. Holy shit. If there was a second title for this movie, I would call it The Dafoe Show. And I would be a paid subscriber to the monthly installment of the Dafoe Show. The Dafoe Show. He'd be amazing. Just put him in different skits and actors, whatever. Anyway, so
I think even compared to just comparing him to the Joker real quick, because we did The Dark Knight, and I think he doesn't have the craziest, scariest superpower. Right. He has tech. He has the bombs. He has the glider. Yep. He's a little bit stronger, but still. And even with all this stuff, he just has he's scary. Like, he
yeah.
knows what he's doing. He doesn't have any remorse for anything.
None.
So, and that alone, like,
yeah.
he's out.
Plus, and it's such a hard role to do. Like, it's so hard to play that dual personality in a believable way. It's hard to play yourself off as sympathetic even down to the final scene. Not gonna get into it too deep, but he just, in this role, he hits every single emotion that you could go for on the most extreme level. And it's extremely impressive. And I highly suggest anybody, if you like his performance in this, look for other films that he's in.
What other films is he in?
He's in a lot. I'd have to look him up. But one movie in particular that I still haven't seen, but I'm dying to see with him is The Lighthouse. Have you heard of that?
I've heard
It's
of it,
him and Robert Pattinson.
That's the black and white?
It's black and white, yeah, but it's like newer. But it's from the person who made The Witch. It's from the same person who made The Witch, who's like super obsessed with doing time period pieces that are historically accurate. So like when they did The Witch, it was really like a 1600s like settler town, 1700s settler town, whatever. And they did everything, like they used natural lighting, like all of that stuff. Now they use an electronic camera. But, all right, so we just talked about his dad. Let's move on to the son. Let's talk about Harry Osborn, played by a young James Franco.
First off, he does look like his son. Yeah. Just from what I've noticed. They have like pretty much like the same jawline.
You're saying Dafoe and Franco?
Yes.
Yeah, they do. They look like they could be father and son.
Yeah.
No, it was a good casting for sure.
But on the performance side, I thought like you could follow him emotionally and through his troubles or whatever. And I thought, you know, his performance reflected that. And I thought overall he was good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is the exact type of role that people don't appreciate. You're not supposed to like his character.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And he fucking nails it. He's a preppy, selfish, arrogant asshole who his only friend is Peter for who knows what fucking reason. And he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And Franco does a great job of displaying that and carrying himself in that attitude and executing the role. People are gonna say, yeah, that sounds so hard. He's James Franco. It just sounds like he's being himself. But, maybe. But I'm just saying, he had a role and he got the job done. He's like the sixth man on a team. Like, he comes off the bench, he does his job, gets a high five, but, you know, he's not gonna get the top picks for the ladies after the game. He's getting the scraps. He's got the thankless job. That's fine.
It's okay.
He's fine. He turned it into a plenty big career. Yeah. James Franco did fine. And this was the start. But this was his real breakthrough. Yeah. People were like, oh, who's that good looking guy who's a douchebag? Maybe he could play a douchebag in my film. That's how that works. Last person we have to hit, because I fucking love this guy. J.K. Simmons plays J. Jonah Jameson, the editor of the newspaper. What were your thoughts?
I thought he was hilarious.
He's incredible.
Hysterical. He just gave like so much like aggressiveness, sass, and like
so much wittiness and just snappy. I just love he could give a shit about his wife on the phone. Every time he gets hot up, he just hang up, just tell her we just put carpet down, fuck her. And it's literally, it's amazing. But yeah, just this is crap, total crap. It's just everything about him is awesome. And J.K. Simmons is, to me, like the prototype for that role. If you need a hard-nosed, like, leader, either in the office or the military, get J.K. Simmons. He's gonna do it. Mason, I'm just gonna toss it out there.
Okay.
Aunt May and Uncle Ben, they're old, boring, and they suck.
You really think so? I mean, I have a thing for hearing old people have conversations. I think it's so interesting to me. Because they're always so like nice and proper and like kind. I don't know, it's hard, it's sweet. I thought, you know, they had the first conversation in the movie. And
when they're just kind of talking together and he got laid off his job. And she's like, don't worry, we'll land on our feet, we always do.
Yeah, see?
Yeah?
I love hearing old people talk.
Yeah, you should watch The Golden Girls. I thought that was dreadful. I thought the writing was horrible. I thought that whole scene was a nightmare.
Maybe, I mean, I don't know. I forgot what they were talking about. I just like their voices.
Are you going to be a retirement home director when you're old?
Maybe.
Is this what's going to happen? Are we finding out your career path right here on this video? Have you discovered your love for old people thanks to Spider-Man? All right, everybody. Spoilers. Boom! spoiler territory.
We are.
We're here. You are.
At home.
Or.
Anywhere else.
Or. Got him. So now, everything going forward is free game. We're going to talk about the ending. We're going to talk about all the plot points. We're going to talk about all the bullshit in this movie. We might even spoil, might even go into Spider-Man 2 or 3 possibly. Who knows? Nobody knows. It's the spoiler zone. So we try and keep it chronological. Typically, we'll try and go from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, but we jump around. You know us. We're all over the place. Let's have Mason get us started and bring up some plot or writing stuff he's found.
So I thought, the spiders that you see, like when they're walking around, they're showing all the different like spiders that have cool abilities or the genetically engineered ones. I thought that was a cool way to kind of like showcase Spider-Man's powers and foreshadow them. I noticed that the second time watching that, I was like all the stuff they're mentioning about these spiders, like jumping from one thing to another, whatever, that's all what he does.
Right, exactly.
So it's cool that they kind of foreshadow it that way.
Yeah, they actually have a computer screen that's up in the one corner. If you notice when they merge, after he gets bit, there's like the little computer screen that shows the DNA splicing together. And the top right corner of that screen actually lists 7 or 8. It's like all the abilities he gets from when he's bitten.
It says like new species on it?
Yeah, it says new species, and it specifically says like jumping and all this other whatever stuff.
So based on his like nerdy and kind of, obsessive nature towards MJ, he talks about like liking her since like first grade, right?
Yeah.
So having like a bedroom window to bedroom window view, I don't know if that's the greatest idea.
For who? I think he likes it.
I think he likes it.
I agree. There's a couple times where he looks through his window at her, and she's, basically getting changed with no blinds or curtains, and questionable. I think that would definitely not go down that way if the movie was made in 2022. And
I think that he even mentions like that she might not even know who he is.
Which is
that
weird.
fact that has a bedroom window to bedroom window view and knows like all the stuff about her. Very stalker energy.
Extremely stalker energy.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something. I think that's something with older generations that's phasing out as we're in newer generations.
Like going in the tree with the binoculars.
Yeah, like just being creepers. Like creepy old dudes are creepy old dudes for a reason. Because back in the day, that wasn't creepy.
Yeah.
When you wanted to win over your 15-year-old girl of choice, you as a 20-year-old man would go creep the fuck out of them. Until eventually they acquiesced and decided they had no choice but to go on a date with you. And then you forced them to be your wife. And that's how most of us came to be where we are today.
Are you sure it's most of us?
Yeah.
So I had the same question with Waterboy. I was kind of questioning, was this originally made for kids? Or was it kind of like that middle ground, kind of mainly made for like, PG-13 up, like 13 up?
I think it was rated PG-13, but there's a couple of racy jokes if you want to consider them that way. Are there any curse words? I don't think there are.
I think so.
I think if anything, it might be PG-13 because there's scary sequences.
They are,
the jump scares.
Or like the lab when he's like all trapped in.
Exactly.
Like that was freaky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's a family-friendly movie. I think the idea was that anybody really age 8 up probably could have been able to see this movie. Yeah, and people did see this movie. It originally had a budget of $139 million, and it made over $850 million at the box office. So
I know it made that much.
Yeah, big money. And we wonder why comic book movies are a thing.
And then why there's so many of them now.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Green Goblin's character in general.
Yeah.
He was sick.
He was the best.
We already talked about Willem Dafoe's performance, which was great and definitely fit the character. Now we can actually talk about the scenes, the whole festival, and like the business where they were like testing this like mech suit or whatever.
Yeah, he just blows that shit up.
What's that? Boom.
Yeah.
And that was just like...
In the laugh.
Yeah.
The laugh before...
Yeah.
Oh man, that laugh. It's amazing. Yeah.
I thought all the scenes with him, every time you saw his little glider, like you're like, oh, something's about to happen.
Yup. Before he even turns into the Green Goblin, he's already doing some of his face animation stuff, right? When they're giving their proposal to the government and like trying to update them to keep their funding, he's like, oh, we're ready. Everyone approves except for this one guy. And then that scientist says, we need to go back to formula. He goes back back to formula. And even that, you're just like, oh shit, like that's not good. He's not very happy. Then you have the tests where he actually goes in, green smoke, the convulsions. When he does those like, I don't know how to describe it. I'm gonna show the video right here, but he is convulsing and it's so violent and disturbing. His eyes are on the back of his head.
It's not like that would have scared me.
It's freaky, man. Yeah. And then scientist comes in, he just snaps, grabs, going, back to formula, run! It just fucking hulks out on the guy. And then the jump up, like that got me. That's funny. That is fucking funny. I don't care who you are. That was unintentionally hilarious. Two other moments that I think are just him doing an acting masterclass. Because I was an acting teacher, I just toss a DVD with these clips on it. The first one is where Spider-Man's trying to hide in his bedroom. And the blood drops and it hits the ground. First off, that CGI blood looks atrocious. It looks like ketchup. And anyway, the blood drops and makes the sound and Dafoe turns around and you see he kind of has like a faint smile, just like normal face on as he goes to look down. The camera pans down, sees the blood, and it pans back up. When it pans back up, he's got his evil motherfucker face on. And just that slight change, it's just all in the face. I love it. I love face acting. Any time that you can get an emotional response out of me without opening your mouth, hell of a job.
That's what his whole character is. He's like this split personality. You can clearly tell just by his face expressions. When he's if he's either insane or if he's normal.
Right, exactly. Look, I get it. There's a lot of great actors out there, but what Dafoe is doing here is special. Ryan Gosling isn't doing this shit. He doesn't have this range. Get the hell out of here. No way.
So with MJ's whole love circle.
I mean, we could talk about this as a big thing.
Okay. So let me just get this straight, because the whole thing, while she was with her old boyfriend, she was apparently talking to Harry, and then she was having this little connection thing with Peter.
She wasn't talking with Harry until after they broke up.
Really?
Her and Flash.
Well, he went over to her at the spider thing.
Yeah, he talked to her. Is he every girl you talk to, are you dating?
No. Anyway, I was gonna say, she has that little spark with Peter. Then she starts talking to Harry, starts going out with him, and in this whole thing, she starts getting more and more involved with Peter and also Spider-Man, who she thinks are two different people.
And it's one of those things, so Mason, you're gonna realize there's people out there, we like to call them serial daters. These are people that feel like they constantly need to be in a relationship. These people, they have issues with being totally alone for whatever reason it may be. And I'm not gonna go out there and say that I know everything, but I will say I'm guessing MJ's is because her dad's a piece of shit. I think MJ might have a daddy issue or two. Considering the fact that her dad says to her, you're a piece of trash just like your mother and you always will be. That's a good thing to say to your daughter. That's one way to get him on the pole. So to your point, she is clearly somebody who is emotionally available. Let's call it that. And it's a huge thing that I have. I'm not a love triangle person, just in general. I found out I was in a love triangle once in my life and ended it immediately. Because I was like, oh no, I'm not doing this. Like I've seen movies, I know how this goes. Like, no, I'm not doing this. So it's one of those things. I really hope you don't ever get caught up in one. But for you, in case you do, or for anybody out there that's in one now or ends up in one, get out. Do not do that. You're worth more than that. If somebody thinks that they're so important that they can hold two people on a string and have them compete for their love, think about how egomaniacal you have to be to think that way. That you're so special that these people should be competing for your love. And I gotta make a choice. Ooh, what was me? I'll just string them all along until I'm forced out of it. And that's both sides too. There's men that do that, and there's women that do that. I'm not saying this is not a sexual. This is not a sexist discussion. This is both sides. Everyone does that.
We're just using Mary Jane as an example.
We're just using Mary Jane as an example because she's literally doing it in this movie. Including one with a superhero, which she clearly is never going to be with. And so here's where part of this whole casting problem is too. Yes. They look like adults. You expect them to act like adults. If these were two 16-year-old actors, it might make more sense. Yeah. You might think, oh, they're teenagers, they don't know better.
Think like Stranger Things with 35-year-olds.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Think about that. No, but to your point, when I watch Stranger Things and I see them do teenager things, I think, well, no shit, they're teenagers, right? When people look like they're 30, but they're supposed to be 18 in a movie, sometimes the brain has trouble registering that and reminding yourself of that through the whole course of a movie. So when you see Kirsten Dunst as a 30-year-old woman acting like a 16-year-old at the end of this film, it's really confusing. Yeah. And I don't blame you. So I will say, it's not even just the love triangle, square, whatever you want to call that. It's also the idea that the dialogue between these people is horrendous. Yeah. The dialogue between Mary Jane and Peter is so thin and it's so contrived. Humans don't talk like this. Human beings do not talk like how they talk. All right, hold on. So, after the play, when Peter just rides 2 buses and a cab to get there, not weird. Shows up at her show unannounced, doesn't tell her. Yeah. Hears about it through his aunt, through her mom. Right? So it's not like she invited him to this show. Yeah. Just pointing out how much of a creeper he is, to your point earlier. He asks, and this is a real line of dialogue, I'm not paraphrasing, because it's not hard to remember this. He says to her at one point, because she's dating Harry, he says, "How are things with Harry?" And she's like, and he says, "Oh, it's none of my business." And she's like, "Oh, it's not?" He's like, "No, it's not." She's like, "Well, why would you ask?" And he says, "Yeah, why would I ask?" She's like, "I don't know. Why would you?"
It's like middle school dialogue.
It's the worst. And it goes to, once again, if they were 12 years old in these roles, then maybe it would make sense. But these are 30-year-old people trying to act like they're 18 reading the script of a 10-year-old. It's not good. Lauren and I spent most of our time laughing when they were supposed to. When you said earlier that the hospital scene was sweet.
You didn't like the hospital scene? Really?
You need to rewatch that scene. Okay. And how long Tobey takes, Tobey. Peter takes 45 seconds to explain to MJ what he thinks of her to Spider-Man. Like, when you look in her eyes, everything feels weird. But weird in a good way.
You're stronger and weaker.
Yeah, no, that's the cadence for 45 seconds. At the end of it, she's like tearing up, like she's never heard or seen such a speech in her life. Mason, here, I challenge you. Write down what he says, say it to Lauren, and let me know when she gets back to you.
You might be like, come on.
Can I read your notes? Like, it'd just be faster if I read
it. Did you notice the Stan Lee cameo?
Oh yeah, that was one of the worst cameos I
was just in the audience. He like grabbed. Did you see him grab the kid?
Yeah. He was like, "I'm gonna be in the movie. I'm gonna save the kid. I'm gonna grab the shit out of her. Come here, little girl. I'm gonna save you." We have to talk about my favorite scene. Okay. It's been my favorite scene since the first time I saw it when I was 10 years old. It's still my favorite scene now, nearing 31. The wrestling scene. Oh yeah. I'm not even a wrestling fan. I'm gonna put it out there. I think like professional wrestling, I think is a crock of shit, and I think it's corny as fuck. Take that as you will. If we lose viewers or subscribers because I don't like wrestling, boo-hoo. That being said, love this wrestling. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you know this. The wrestler in there, Bonesaw, which great name. I love the guys with the cardboard axes in the crowd. That was cool. I like they have a whole theme for him. So that is Macho Man Randy Savage.
Really?
Yeah, that's a real professional wrestler. Those are real professional steroids in his delts. In case you didn't notice, he is juiced. Holy shit! Yeah. I liked wrestling when I was a kid. You know, you like wrestling till you're like 8, and then you grow up. But then Macho Man Randy Savage was a big wrestler back when I was a kid. So him being in this movie and his voice, just everyone comes, oh yeah, Macho Man Randy Savage coming at you. It's just classic. Love it. So like his lines, I still say, you ain't going nowhere. You got 3 minutes of playing time. I love saying that to children and other, So, edit. So it's not even just, obviously it's great having that cameo, but on top of that, it's a totally unique setting.
Yeah.
You're just like in this underworld wrestling pit. It's just dark, and they have this big crowd. They have an MC guy who's running the whole show, like it's fucking Antoine Mixtape Tour. And they come around, and they're literally just bringing wrestlers on from the street.
Yeah.
Macho Man Randy Savage is breaking them in half. They walk out, they don't get a fucking dime. They're not on TV, nothing. Just get their ass kicked, sent home, hoping to get $3,000. To get $3,000, which you see as soon as you see Bonesaw, you should be running away.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think you bring in the cage match aspect. Like, it's just a really hype scene. It's really good. You have the name generation where he's like, I'm the human spider. Like the guy's like, that sucks. And then on the spot comes up with the amazing Spider-Man, which is great. And then you actually have the fight itself, which is entertaining. There is one homophobic joke, not great, but other than that,
doesn't age well. Yeah,
it doesn't age well, but other than that, very effective humor. That was a little cheap that Bonesaw, who is probably 300 pounds of muscle, gets to use a chair.
Yeah.
Why does he get
like it's not fake this time?
Right,
it's real. He's actually beating you up with a golf club and a chair.
Right, that was very real, and they're probably, oh well, the spider guy is using ropes, but listen, I don't think that gives you a right to use a chair. There's a fair middle ground between that.
And I thought it was kind of unique because I never knew that he designed his Spider-Man costume around a wrestling costume.
Yeah.
I never knew that. It was kind of cool to find out about.
Yeah, I believe, maybe there's a comic fan that can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is the true origin of where the costume came from. He did actually need money to get a car because he wanted to impress Mary Jane, and then he ends up with the costume, and this whole thing kind of comes together. I just want to bring up, I think the montages in this movie are well done in general.
Yeah.
The suit creation montage, then you have the montage where everyone's meeting him for the first time, and then later on you have a montage where there's newspapers coming out, kind of like during his downfall. And I think all of those were done very tastefully. A lot of visual stuff going on, but not overwhelming.
Yeah.
Just thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I mean, I agree with you. I don't know why I said I see where you're coming from.
You see where I'm coming from because you agree with me and I'm right in every single way. Yeah, I totally understand.
But yeah, I mean, I appreciated the montages, and while some of them did have a lot of corny transitions, like the slide transitions and stuff like that.
Right.
Like, they were cheerful. They were a good break from all the action.
Well, and it's good pacing, to your point, where you kind of just nailed it. Because this is a 2-hour-long movie, which you're starting to creep into the territory of like, it's a superhero movie, do you really need... Now, this was back when... Before every superhero movie was 2 hours long. Like a 2-hour-long superhero movie. Well, first off, they didn't have a lot of superhero movies back then. They definitely didn't have 2-hour ones. So this was long for back then. So they probably felt like they needed to montage some of it just for runtime. I probably would even toss it out there. I think you could even fit one more in there if you wanted to.
Yeah.
With like maybe him and MJ and Harry, kind of give a little bit more backstory on why they all get along so well. Because that's one thing I think is kind of...
Or maybe if you did want to lean more into like the dad of to flesh out MJ's character, you could do more with that.
Yeah. Or even maybe give Uncle Ben some more time before he kicks the bucket. And maybe get a better actor for him, and Aunt May. Maybe get a better house so he doesn't have to paint the inside.
Or have them talk more, so I'll enjoy it.
Yeah. One thing, I was getting some real deja vu moments, and I'm really interested to hear your perspective. When the Green Goblin abducts Spider-Man, makes him pass out from the sleep gas, starts talking to him, that conversation they have is so similar to the Batman and Joker conversation in The Dark Knight, isn't it?
I noticed it, yeah.
It's literally like a carbon copy, and this movie came out, I don't know, 6-7 years earlier. Just putting it out there. Just Christopher Nolan might want to answer a question.
You might want to play through a little plagiarism checker.
Might want to talk to your writer. See if maybe watch this movie on it.
Maybe there's a little mistake.
Maybe there's something going on there.
Maybe your movie's not as good as we thought it was.
I have to bring up the most memorable scene. As much as I love the wrestling scene, it's very memorable. what I will always remember about this movie is the final combat scene between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin in that old decrepit building with like all the bricks and everything like that.
Yeah.
I think the lighting is super cool. It's that dark, smoky blue tint to it.
Yeah.
And they both are just, I mean, it starts with Green Goblin just fucking beating the shit out of him. Just haymakers, talking shit until he brings his girl into it. And then, of course, it all turns around because it's a movie.
Yeah, it's all about the girl.
It's all about a girl. I hate that. Yeah, he brings up the girl, gets Peter nice and pissed off, so he turns around, he does some cool shit, like does some cool different moves. The firefight was cool too, and they were fighting in the burning building.
Yeah.
That was aesthetically pretty cool too.
I don't know if I really liked him being like the little, acting like a girl in the house. Like, I thought that was kind of...
Wasn't that such an elaborate setup just to have a conversation? It's like, I'm gonna light this building on fire, I'm gonna put a baby in danger so that me and Spider-Man can have a chat. He's like, you're so predictable, Spider-Man. I'm like, yeah, you lit the building on fire. I mean, I thought I could help, swing by. Good Lord.
I think anybody would.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Green Goblin's like, he'd say it to the fire department, ah, you're so gullible coming to the fire. So easy to get you to show up, Mr. Fire Department. Maybe you should think about avoiding fires. All right, everybody, now it's time for the speed round, what we like to call odds and ends.
We don't usually like to go too into detail with these points.
No.
Thanks for ad-libbing.
Yeah.
We don't usually like going too deep with these points, but we just quick fire, quick points.
Yeah.
And I'll do mine first.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep.
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 All right.
So in the beginning, how he was running after the bus,
Yeah.
you know, that was really to just show how much of a loser he is. But I like how he kind of tied it back a little bit to show kind of the sticky powers
Yeah.
with like the banner. I just thought that was kind of like a cool touch to kind of, you know, bring that back.
I thought so too. It's always good to have a nice little recall to that. I will say my one problem I have, he's supposed to be able to run faster. Wouldn't he have caught up to the bus faster? If not, have caught the bus entirely.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd toss out there.
Yeah.
It seemed like he was going the same rate of speed in the beginning of the movie as after he got bit, and that kind of bothered me. But
Yeah, I can see that. So I know they brought up in this movie a lot, the whole great power comes great responsibility. Is this like the start of it? Is this like the origin?
Yeah.
So this was like the first time,
Well-
I know it's like a big cliche, but I don't know if it was really brought up this much before this.
I don't know if that was a direct line from a Spider-Man comic book or not, but I know that this movie and that line in this movie is what made it the popular term that it is today. 100%.
All right.
I'm not going to sit here and say no one ever in the history of movies or books or magazines used that phrase before, but in terms of why is it such a big common phrasing now, that is what it is. That's where the meme comes from. Yeah, I'm sure you will notice a couple of other very popular memes from this movie too.
I'm Science Myself.
I'm so the Science Myself is my favorite one.
Yeah.
Because, well, obviously it's our favorite guy from this movie.
Yeah.
Are you going to appreciate it on a whole new level now when you see it? Because he's so smug when he does it.
He said it.
Yeah. It was literally that meme. It was the meme where they're playing at the screen. Yeah. No, he does say it so smug. It's actually, it's my first line of my odds and ends is, I'm something of a scientist myself. Like, he just says it just with such a smug attitude. It fits the meme perfectly. I get why people
And what was the other one? Like, how can you do this to me? Like in like the yeah.
Are we gonna really sit here and act like Mary Jane doesn't know what Peter's voice sounds like? Are we really gonna sit here and act like Mary Jane hasn't swung in Spider-Man's arms and seen exactly how tall he is and heard him talk for long extended periods of time, and at no point she thought, you know, that kind of sounds like the guy I've lived next to for 12 years.
And maybe, like, he has, like, the same, like, little scruff facial hair. Or maybe he has, like, you know, he looks same height, same, like,
body type.
Yeah.
Huh, I wonder.
Put it together.
You know, it's a classic superhero trope that literally, I mean, think about Superman. He takes off his freaking glasses and was like, who's that guy? Fucking Clark Kent, clearly, without glasses. What do you think he looks like? You think when he goes to bed, it's like, oh, it's Superman! It's just Clark Kent going to bed. All right, Mason, we are now ready to get into our Holdupability ratings. How are you going to rate Spider-Man on a scale of 1 to 10 on Holdupability?
So while it was pretty formulaic and while the love angle was I thought that the villain was very strong. I thought that the action was great. I thought that the comedy, when it was there, you know, usually landed. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Look at that.
I mean, I was invested. Like, there were certain points where I put down the phone and I was just like, I'm just gonna watch it. Like, I don't know. And if I think of something, I'll write it down. But usually, I'm like watching it to take notes.
Yeah.
But like, you know, in this movie, I was like, this is cool. I'm putting this down.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad to hear that because it is a cool movie. But where I'm gonna come with it, where I'm gonna come down on this, unfortunately for my Spider-Man fans out there, I had a rough time with this one. I'm sure part of it is the fact that there are newer and better Spider-Mans out there.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it.
Yes.
Kind of like, I bet you if a better actor made good Rocky movies, that eventually, like, you know, Sylvester Stallone wasn't that great. Like,
yeah.
because there's no one else to compare it to, he's like, hey, he's Rocky, hey, you know?
Yeah, I can see your point.
Yeah, so I think, you know, Tobey Maguire in this movie kind of take a hit just because of the success of the future Spider-Man films and the Avengers universe. But at the same time, I think there is good action in this. Willem Dafoe is unreal as the villain.
Yeah.
That being said, I think the script is super weak. I think this movie, the entire backbone is the action sequences and the effects. And unfortunately, the effects have not aged that well in the last 20 years. Definitely not enough to be able to rely on it for plot. So I'm gonna drop the hammer, giving this one a 6 out of 10, which is really low for me.
Yeah.
I don't tend to give movies this well. I gave Waterboy a 9 out of 10 last week. The difference with this and Waterboy is endlessly entertaining. I actually enjoy some of those. I enjoy most character performances in that movie. I think the writing was actually better in The Waterboy. Sorry to say it, but there's no depth. It's super formulating, to your point. Without Dafoe coming in and his dynamicism in that role, this might have been a snoozer.
I think like put Dafoe in like any other movie and that movie would improve.
Yes.
Take out Dafoe of this movie, the movie would go down like forward.
It would be huge. Tobey Maguire could not carry this by himself.
No.
You would have need to put like 3 more J.K. Simmons scenes in just to bring the energy up on this movie.
Yeah.
Like honestly. So 7.5 for Mason and a 6 out of 10 for me. I still would suggest it if you're somebody who likes superhero movies and you just like action, you want to check out an old Spider movie.
And you want to check out Willem Dafoe?
Yeah, check it out. Just don't expect a great script. Don't expect a great love angle. Oh, the love. Hated it. And, you know, just have a good time.
Yeah.
Like Mason said, put your phone down, just enjoy it for what it is. Thanks for checking out this video.
Like and subscribe and let us know what you thought about the movie in the comments below.
Let us know if there's any movies you want us to watch. Who knows, maybe we'll watch them together.